In this video, we're going to look at alternatives to global action on combating climate change. Now, one of the reasons that global climate change policy is challenging is because people have trouble valuing future benefits. We're not very good at that. For example, if I offered you $20 today, you would take it. If I said, I'll give you $20 today, or I'll give you $200 tomorrow, what would you prefer? Would you take the $20 today, or would you wait till tomorrow and take the $200? You'd probably take the $200. What if I said, I'll give you $20 today or $200 2 years from now? All of a sudden, that benefit is looking further away into the future, and people become more likely to accept the instant gratification. This is called hyperbolic discounting. We don't do this very well as humans. We misjudge the future benefits when the time horizon gets longer. So the further away something is into the future, we don't do a good job putting that value on it. We don't recognize that it's actually worth more if we wait. $20 today, $200 tomorrow? Sure. What about $200 next week? Maybe. $200 2 years from now? It's still more than the $20 today. However, because the time horizon is so long, people might be more apt to take the current day's benefit. So with that, it's no surprise that global action is difficult, and much of it has not been successful. However, there are some examples of global action that has been successful. For example, stratospheric ozone. In the 1970s, the US Congress authorized the Environmental Protection Agency to start regulating substances that were harmful to the ozone layer. And the British scientists in 1985 famously found a huge hole in the ozone layer. And so within a couple years, a global protocol called the Montreal Protocol was signed to eliminate these. Many of these chemicals like CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, were harming the ozone layer. And so very quickly, in retrospect, countries got together and said, let's ban these chemicals. They're hurting the ozone layer. And the problem was remedied. Now, why did that work, whereas other agreements like the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Agreement did not? Well, complexity is one reason. Interconnected scale of global climate change, very, very complicated. A specific hole in the ozone layer caused by a specific chemical, a little easier to understand. And so that made it more palatable. It made it more acceptable to the people. It was also easy to see. We could tangibly see that hole in the ozone layer in these graphic models and images. And so that really lent towards media coverage as well. When we can understand the issue, there's a simple cause and a simple connection to the outcome, and the media could actually portray that accurately. That really got political support for it. People were very much in favor of this specific action to tackle this specific problem. Another potential for global climate change mitigation is local initiatives, subnational units. Things like states in the United States or provinces in Canada can come up with their climate mitigation strategies easier than large multilateral global initiatives. For example, California established the California Air Resources Board to try and eliminate smog and air pollution within the state. In Canada, British Columbia was one of the first provinces to experiment with a carbon tax to try and put a price on carbon and ultimately reduce the impact on the environment. There are lots of municipal actions that can be taken as well. Cities can do their part to try and mitigate the impacts of climate change. 516 Canadian municipalities have declared climate emergencies. Now, those are largely symbolic. In many ways, they are just a symbolic signal that they are taking an issue seriously. However, some municipalities, like London, Ontario, have attached that declaration to a physical plan with specific policies that they are attempting to implement. There are also some private sector and public sector partnerships. For example, in Hawaii, Waikiki Beach, one of the sort of most famous beaches in the world, is disappearing. Partly because of sea level rise, partly because of erosion, and so many typical walkways and sidewalks around the island and the beachfront are just disappearing, and they're being forced to shutter. So the local government and the corporations that own the hotels in this region are investing money to try and mitigate the effects of this. and to try and rehabilitate the coastline. So that's an example of an initiative as well. So non-global action might be more acceptable politically for people, and it might be easier to overcome collective action problems. When you're trying to coordinate a lot of different interests globally, each one is going to be forced to make different concessions. Agreement will be tough to reach. Locally, the problems are easier to identify, the effects are easier to identify. Overcoming that collection active problem is easier. People can make a more specific and direct link between their lives and the impact of climate change.